हरे कृष्णा प्रणाम प्रभु श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग उदयतः I'm trying to make this small video because it is difficult to write things, type things, and go in that way. So, this will be a small presentation of what I consider to some extent that how one should go about being a scholar in a particular way. And how I would plan to train someone who is ready for being a scholar, a Vaishnava scholar in the Shastras. So, here we'll start with understanding the basics. I did share a video of Mani Dravid Shastrigal who explains some things of it, not in very detail, but okay, yes, to some extent, some details are there. But in this particular video, I would try to also show the connections between different shastras and what purposes they serve and how they are interconnected in serving that particular and other purposes so that we will be able to understand that what we need in our movement and what exactly are the prerequisites that we'll need and where to put and thus decide where to put energy properly, and also that will make us understand the eligibilities also. So we start with the Yagyavalkya Smriti, which subcategorizes Vedas and Smriti sources into 14. And this is not just Yagyavalkya Smriti, but at many other places, these 14 Chaturdasha Vidya Sthanani, they are given. So these are 14, and these are called as the sources of Dharma. Dharma Moolam. So here, first are the Puranas, the 18 Puranas, the Mahapuranas. This is one. Then the Nyaya Shastra. Nyaya includes, actually, it is Tarka. Nyaya here includes Vaishashika and Pramana Shastra, Nyaya Shastra, Gautama's Nyaya Shastra. Then Mimamsha Shastra, the Purva Mimamsa, and then the Dharma Shastras, the 20 in number, the main Dharma Shastras. These become one, two, three, four. And then the six Vedangas, Shiksha, Chanda, Nirukta, Vyakarana, Kalpa, Jyotish, and then the four Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sam, and Atharva. These are the 14 sources to get knowledge about Dharma. This is given in Yagyavalkya Smriti 1 3. That's Acharadhyaya, third shloka. That's the beginning of the Yagyavalkya Smriti. And Apararka writes in his commentary to this verse, he says that in the Brahma Purana, Vedanta and Upanishads are also involved in the sources of Vidyasthanas. There it is given Vidyasthana, it is given Dharmasthana. And thus it becomes 16 sources and not 14 sources. However, because these two are the sources of gaining knowledge for moksha, they are not involved as sources here in Yagyavalkya Smriti because it discusses dharma only. So it's a technical detail that these 14 are particularly speaking about dharma. Dharma means here mainly kriya vakyas of the Shastra. What is to be done, what is not to be done. Vidhi Nished Rupa, uh, dharma. And the other two sources, the Vedanta and Upanishads, that's Vedanta and Upanishads, they specifically speak about uh, the moksha or the jnana section, you can say, that how, why we are here, what actually we should be aiming in this human life, and all those Brahma Jignasa that is being discussed. So their jnana will be the foremost entity that is being discussed. So this way, there are actually 16 Vidyasthanas. Now we all understand now. So we discussed about what are the all sources, the primary sources of Vedic literatures, primary Vedic literatures. And by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas, uh, we have a privilege to understand that all these 16 sources are connected. These 14 sources, which primarily describe the Kriya part, what is to be done and what is not to be done, and the two sources which describe the Jnana part, that what all these things are all about, all these things are about, the Vedanta and Upanishads. So they are completely connected with each other. Those who do not accept the Jnana part tend to become types of karma mimamsakas, and they try to enjoy this world. And those who accept only the Jnana part and do not give much importance to the karma part, they become more towards the Mayavadi karma sannyasis, that type of understanding. I'm not saying that they become sannyasis, but the understanding tend to be like that. In short, to make the big things short, long thing short, because this is not a lecture. So just those who give more importance to the latter two parts, the Vedanta and Upanishads, uh, they make the other 14 parts subsidiary to these, and those who give the more importance to the 14 parts, they make the Vedanta and Upanishad subsidiary to them. So one goes on enjoying the material world, and another goes on renouncing the material world. But we know that all the 16 are connected. The details of what is to be done and what is not to be done, Vidya and Nisheda, of the Krishna culture, Vaishnava culture, which is Vedic culture, are given in these 14. While the attitude and bhavana by which all these things are to be done, not for oneself but for satisfying the Lord, that is mentioned in these two, Vedanta and Upanishads. Therefore, Vedanta and Upanishads, they put in perspective these 14 Vidyasanas. And Srimad Bhagavatam, although a part of 18 Puranas, that's from the 14 Vidyasthanas, it is also a commentary, Bhashya, on Vedanta. And basically, the nature of Bhagavatam is more of Vedanta type than of the 14 Vidyasthanas type, means than of the uh, detailing of karma kriyas. So therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is a good blend of both, and it puts into perspective, as the Vedanta and Upanishads put into perspective. Srimad Bhagavatam clarifies the heart of Vedanta and puts into perspective all the 14 Vidyasthanas. That okay, yes, these are there, so these are the. So now I want to little bit elaborate on what is putting into perspective the sources of dharma or the 14 Vidyasthanas. See, if someone studies Vedanta and Upanishads, they will certainly be knowing that yes, our aim is to get out of this material world and be situated in our own constitutional position. Someone may call it Brahma, someone may call it Paramatma, but Bhagavatam, by Bhagavatam, we know that that is as a servant of Krishna, Jiva Krishna Das. So that knowledge is had from Shrimad Bhagavatam, and the knowledge of the Abhidaya, how to get it, is also there in Shrimad Bhagavatam. But in that Abhidaya, there are many details that are to be followed, And one of the things which is mentioned there is that one should go on performing his varnochita duties when he is in this material world, at least when he is in the material world. So now those duties are mentioned here in the 14 vidyasthanas. So to some extent Bhagavatam does elaborate on them, but not to an extent that uh, these 14 vidyasthanas elaborate them. And that's why at many places one will find that lack of information which is otherwise required to be able to perform that particular uh, karya or the work. Besides that, yes, so that's why that information has to be had from here. Besides that, it's a big topic, but I will not elaborate it here. It's shown to some extent, it's visible in Brihad Bhagavatamrita also, and Guru Maharaj puts this point also in his culture book that Vedic culture which we see is actually followed in the spiritual world also, in the Golokdam Vrindavan also, and actually that is the culture which Lord Krishna prefers, which Lord Krishna not only prefers, he lives that culture. And so everything which is done for Krishna in his devotional service is having details that it is to be done like this. Why Krishna does not wear jeans? Why not any other cloth? Why he wears dhoti only? Why of that color only? Why in that spiritual world Cheshta Bhasha is there also similar to the what is given in the Dharma Shastras? Why with left hand and right hand? All those details which are to be performed in Krishna Seva, even in the deity worship. These details are all from Vedic, are all same as the Vedic culture which we find in this material world. Uh, in fact, it said in Brihad Bhagavatamrita that when Gopakumar went to the Golok Vrindavan, he could not make any difference between the activities that were being performed there and here in Aryavarta. That's a big topic. It's a different thing, but I wanted to put this point. So, the details which we find in this Chaturdasha Vidyasthana, they are actually going to very much help us to know how to serve Krishna in detail. That's why these Chaturdasha Vidyasthanas are also there besides Vedanta and Upanishads. So this is small. This was a small explanation to this, that how Bhagavatam puts all the sources of dharma into perspective. Now we will see interconnections of all these uh, Vidyasthanas. Right now, we saw the philosophical interconnection of the Vedanta and Upanishads with the Kriya Vakyas here in Puranas and Dharma Shastras. So, now we will see how these are structured. So, four Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sam, and Atharva, along with their Brahmanas, they are meant for engaging everyone in this world, every human being in this world, in yajnas and other dharmic works. Basically, these are the Shastras, Vedas, and six Vedangas, the Shiksha, Chanda, Nirukta, Vyakarana, Kalpa, and Jyotish, are must know things. These are small, not very big, but these are must to be known in order to understand the artha of the Vedas or even Shabda. See, Vedas contain two things: the Shabdas, that is the dhvani that comes, the words, you can say words, you can say dhvani, whatever. It has a form, and it is, you can say, it is like a book. So remembering the Vedas is like printing books as it is. Like the printer doesn't know what it is, but he will print that it will be printed as it is. That's called remembering the Vedas. You just go on remembering it generation by generation, and you can't do it by printing because it has you can't print the Vedas. It's not possible because it's as you can say that you can't print any sound. You cannot print. Even if I'm speaking right now, you may write something, but by seeing that writing, no one else will be able to reproduce that sound, whatever I have spoken. It's not possible. Similarly, is the case with Vedas. They are coming in this world as it is. They are eternal. They are coming in this world by the medium of sound, and exact repetition of that is being taught by the Guru Parampara, where the Guru exactly sees that the Shishya is repeating exactly as it is. When the Guru is satisfied, then he makes the Shishya bona fide that okay, now you have the Veda. You have the Veda means you have the sound of Veda, Shabda Rupena. You have it. So for that, you for making your Shishya uh, uh, कि वो वेद धारण कर पाए, so that he can catch the Veda, he needs many of the Vedangas clear. First of all, Shiksha, the, the art of pronunciation, and it cannot be had just by having a book, just by reading it. Right now we are doing it like we teach some rules of pronunciation and then you see the Bhagavad Gita and then start pronouncing, but that's not exact pronunciation actually. Then Chanda, this is also required, and yeah, these two are very much required to get the Veda pronounced and remembered by us. And then the book is there, that Veda is there, the Shabda is there, but you have to understand the meaning of it. That's called Vedartha. So Veda has to be understood along with the meaning of it. So for that there is Nirukta, because first of all you should have the at least the Shabda Pratyaksha. Shabda Pratyaksha means you are able to distinguish the words in the Shabdas which in the Dhwani which you are speaking. So different words. So that's how from Nirukta you will be able to at least differentiate that okay, this is one word, this is second word. You may not be able to know exactly the meanings of that. Still the meaning are also given. And so Nirukta and Vyakarana. Vyakarana deals with the whole sentence structure and meaning. So Nirukta Vyakarana is are inevitable for understanding the meaning of the Vedas by reading or by hearing from the Guru the meaning of it. So Sanskrita, Nirukta Vyakarana are required to understand the meaning of the Vedas. It may not be very elaborate Vyakarana because Vyakarana can be of several levels. One can be a Vyakarani, and he may be able to learn in more depth, but at least basic Vyakarana, which is required, which were taught in the uh, Gurukulas, that is required to understand the meanings of the Vedas. And then Kalpa and Jyotisha. So Vedas, it's Shabda, Vedas, it's Artha, and Vedas, it's application. Application is yajnas. You have to perform it as that's what is there. So that is also taught along with the Vedas. The application that brahmacharis will do yajnas, help Guru in his yajna, etc. All these dharmic activities that has to be done. So for performing that, you need to know Kalpa and Jyotisha. Kalpa has a few parts of it, and Jyotisha is Kala Jnana, that you have to fix the date and different things. There are many things in Jyotisha. How the yajna is successful or not, to know that also you have the Swapna Jyotisha. and many other things. So that is required, the knowledge of Jyotish. And Kalpa has two parts, two major parts of it. One is the manufacture, one is the making of Yagya Vedis, etc. For that, elaborate mathematics and trigonometry, geometry is there, by which you can make all these Yagya Vedis of different types. And the other part of that kalpa is Grihya Sutras, Dharma Sutras, and Shauta Sutras, which are required, wherein the details of how a person should live his life are given. Grihya Kalpa and Griya, Shauta, and Dharma Sutras. How in the four Varnas and specifically in Grihastashram, one should live his life, lifestyle. One has to wake up in the morning, etc., etc. The whole acharana, sadachar is given in those sutras, without which you cannot even enter the Vedic path. So the Vedangas and Vedas, they form very interrelated thing. Then only this much is there, and then these are the sources of the 18 Puranas, the Nyaya Shastra, the Mimamsa Shastra, and Dharma Shastras. So Dharma Shastras elaborate on what is given in the Grihya, Shota, and Dharma Sutras. So Dharma Shastras are make life easy. Not life easy, sorry. Dharma Shastras make it easier to understand the how one should live in this world. What are the vidhi and nisheda given by Shastras? Because Vedas do not very much elaborate on that. And Dharma Sutra, Grihya Sutra, and the Shauta Sutras, they do elaborate to some extent, while Dharma Shastras elaborate them in quite detail. And that is why Dharma Shastras are there. They are called the Smritis because they are dependent on the Vedas. Their information come from the Vedas, but in a way that we can apply in this life. So there are 20 in number as given in the Yagyavalkya Smriti. The next shloka details which are those 20 Dharma Shastras. Anyway, Manu, Yagyavalkya, Parashara, ityadi, ityadi. And by this, by all these, one understands and follows the Dharma. What is to be done in this life, how one should live the life, and what are the attitudes in this world we should, uh, what is good and what is bad uh, in all fields. These are heard by these sources. So dharma is already known when you are knowledge and application of these sources. Nyaya Shastra, or the Pramana Vaisheshika Shastra, which is called Tarka Shastra. Tarka Shastra has two parts, the Pramana and the another is Vaisheshika. So Vaisheshika Shastra and to some extent Pramana Shastra, they discuss the different relationships between things. These are called different bhavas, like Sevak Sevya Bhav. So Sevaka Sevya Bhav is the Sevaka is there and Sevya is there, and the relationship between them is discussed. That these type of things are called Sevaka Sevya Bhav. And uh, Amsha Amshi Bhav. So one is Amsha and one is Amshi. So what does that relationship? So that type of bhavas, these are all logical things which are discussed there in the Nyaya and Vaisheshika Shastras. Besides that, the pramanas are discussed, the sources of knowledge and how we understand things, what we understand. And that's why this is the fundamental Shastra which establishes the uh, foundation of all these Vidyasthanas. That why these are the only Vidyasthanas for dharma and for moksha and not pratyaksha and anumana. They are not the very important sources for dharma, which is not visible. So this is Nyaya Shastra. Of course, there are levels of understanding which you can go to, but basic Nyaya is basic Tarka Shastra, which also is taught. in Gurukulas as much as is required for understanding the Vedas and the Shastras. So this is also required. The Tarka Shastra is also required to understand the Shastras. Then are the 18 Puranas. Now these are the Pancham Veda. 18 Puranas, and you can say Mahabharata also. Mahabharata and Ramayana. Itihasa Purana Yoho Ekyam Panchatvam. So this is the fifth Veda. And this is a big uh, Rashi, the Veda Rashi. And it has the property of both the Veda, that's what is to be done and what is not to be done, the Chodana or the Vidhi Nisheda Vakyas, as well as the Jnana Vakyas. The Puranas also have Jnana Vakyas, and why everything has to be done, those informations are also given in Puranas. That's why to understand, really understand the meaning of the Vedas, the thing which one should go through is Puranas. The meaning of the Vedas. Here we just took the idea that Nirukta Vyakarana are required to understand the meaning of the Vedas. But what is the meaning of that Veda? By understanding Nirukta and Vyakarana, you cannot understand the meaning of the Vedas. But the meaning of the Vedas by the medium of language have been given in Puranas and even Dharma Shastras. Dharma Shastra basically, rather than discussing much the meaning of the Vedas, it gives the practical application of the Vedas, the how to apply practically what are the things which are to be applied in this world. But 18 Puranas, along with those things, they also give the meaning that why all these things are to be done, and even the Jnana Kanda is discussed much in the Puranas. So Puranas are the prime sources actually to understand and apply Vedas, prime sources of knowledge. But to understand the Puranas, you need Nirukta and Vyakarana. Means you need to understand the language. Then only you can enter to even read or even hear Puranas from the Guru. And Guru will explain. Guru will explain through Sanskrita. And that's why by the understanding of the uh, language, you will be able to understand Puranas. Now, the Dharma, which is twofold in this world, what is to be done and what is not to be done, as well as the uh, consciousness in which it should be done. These both are dharmas, and both are not different, they are part of the same thing, it's not something different. So, things are to be done in Krishna's service, and in what consciousness we should do them, in what relationship. Those things are given in Vedanta and Upanishads. These all are very nicely explained in the Puranas, so one knows these things. But because uh, one may be knowing many things, but there are different vakyas, and sometimes there may be contradictions. You say contradiction, here we are using the English word. I do not like that word. In Shastric Bhasha is called Samshaya. Samshaya means we are not able to come to conclusion that what is the intended meaning here, what we should do and what we should not do. Not exactly what we should do and what we should not do, but exactly that what this particular statement wants us to do. Because the same, there is another statement which gives an opposite meaning that we should do something opposite, use a meaning which says that we should do something opposite, so there is a samshaya. So samshaya is had not out of the blue, when there is an apparent contradiction between the two injunctive statements of the Shastras. One says to do something, and the another says to do exactly the opposite thing. And they cannot be reconciled, that produces a samshaya. that what is to be done and what is not to be done in this particular. I'm not speaking of dharma sammudha cheta or kim kartavya vimudha thing. That is situation specific. Now this one which I'm speaking about, the samshaya, this is the vakyartha specific, that the artha of the two vakyas are getting are against each other. So in that case there will be samshaya. So samshaya, the lakshana or the identifying characteristic of this type of samshayas is that you will have two opposite statements saying opposite things. It won't be out of your not having that knowledge. That will be called ajnana, not samshaya. Samshaya which has come out of ajnana is a different thing, because you do not know, because you do not have studied the shastras. So Mimamsa Shastra specifically targets these type of samshayas. So that's why Athato Dharma Jigyasa means Chaturthi Tat Purusha is there, that Dharma Rakshanartham, Dharma Rakshanaya Jigyasa. That Dharma we already know what is to be done and what is not to be done. But in certain things, there may be samshaya, that does Shastra saying like this, or is Shastra saying like that? What is the real artha? So to save the Shastrartha, the Shastrartha Nirnaya is to be done. Nirnaya about what is the real meaning here. And for that purpose, the Mimamsa Shastra is there, which is a completely logical grantha, and that Mimamsa Shastra is to be studied for that purpose. And that's why to enter the study of Mimamsa Shastra, one must have completed his study about dharmas. Otherwise, one may know the rules of Mimamsa, these are all very logical, and they can be applied not only on the Vedas or the Shastras, but in any field of knowledge. Either it is mundane, material, ajnana, whatever is being talked about, or the you can say jurisprudence, or anywhere you can apply. Even the uh, Shakespeare's literature, you can apply these rules, Mimamsa Shastra's rules, because these are very logical, simple rules, and that you can apply. Uh, but we are targeting here Dharma Shastras. We are targeting here Dharma because that's the only source of real knowledge. All other places, whatever you are applying Mimamsa Shastra, it won't be of much use. So, what I explain is that such higher Shastras like Mimamsa Shastra and higher parts of the Nyaya, they are like the soldiers or army of a country. Country being Dharma Shastras, Vedas, and Vedanga, Upanishads. These are all the real country, you can say. These are the things which the earth of which has to be preserved or sold. So both Mimamsa Shastra, this Purva Mimamsa and Uttar Mimamsa called Vedanta. Uh, Vedanta without understanding of the Upanishads, uh, one cannot understand Vedanta in depth. In depth means talasparshi, means knowing that how these things are rooted in the Shastra. So Mimamsa is like the army of a country. But you can understand if you build an army but you have no country, then what's the use of that army? There is no use. Similarly, if we study Mimamsa Shastra, which generally people are doing today, in the either in Veda Pathashalas or in Gurukulas or in the universities, but they do not study Dharma Shastras. They study Vedas just up to Shabda and not Artha. They do not go to Artha. They do not study Puranas. So, what they come about that they know Mimamsa, Vyakarana, and Nyaya. Three, Padavakya, Pramana Shastrani. And they also understand Vedanta. Yeah, Vedanta and Upanishads, they are in depth, studied in depth. So, in that, they may be okay. But other things, they cannot answer any samshayas of dharmas. I have met many big scholars also, but they do not refer to dharma shastras. They do not refer to Puranas. So they try to solve our contradiction, our sanshaya, just resorting to Vyakarana, Mimamsa, or Nyaya. And many times it becomes very laughable solution. The solution to which would have been easily found in the Dharma Shastra. We are not knowing. We have Sanshaya because we are not having two opposite Vakyas, but we because we do not know, because we also don't study Dharma Shastras or Puranas. So we also do not know, and that's why we have Samshaya. And we go to scholars and we ask them, thinking that they will be knowing. And we ask them, and they also do not know the Dharma Shastra. They also do not know what is to be done and what is not. Only some things which they may have come across in their lineage to some extent. That also people are not following today. So very feeble some things they know while living in cities, so that they may be able to tell. Otherwise, they just resort to Vyakarana. Jain Tenpu knows this about the one of the scholars is there, uh, this Subramanian Korada. So whatever dharma question you ask him, he will just quote from Vyakarana, which are not. If you ask some question about some things in the married life or marriage, he will just answer from Panini Sutras or some Mimamsa Sutra. But that's not the methodology. You should go to Dharma Shastras, get a direct injunctive statements from there, and that's the solution. And only if there are some contradictions in the meaning of the statements, then you may need Mimamsa Shastra, but that contradiction also first has to be solved by the knowledge of Dharma Shastras. That there may be other Vakyas already in the Dharma Shastras which are solving those contradictions, as well as there are so many tikas or commentaries to Dharma Shastras and Puranas, specifically Dharma Shastras. Puranas, yes, Bhagavatam we have commentary, Vishnu Puran we have commentary. So they are also solving so many such things because they already knew Dharma Shastras, Vedas, and they knew Mimamsa, and then there are so much of things are there. We talked about 20 Dharma Shastras, but there will be also supporting those 20 Dharma Shastras. There are Nibandha Granthas like Nirnaya Sindhu is there, Veeramitrodaya is there, Smriti Chandrika, Smriti Muktavali, Smriti Muktaphalam, Hari Bhakti Vilas. These are all Nibandha Shastras. And these are really going to help us very much because they are the uh, Dharma Shastras with Mimamsa Darshan, you can say, with Mimamsa uh, rules used there. So from there we will be able to be helped very much. So we should know Dharma Shastra, we should know these Nibandha Granthas also, so that we learn the technique of how to understand Dharma and not just go on applying Vyakarana and Mimamsa without having even the primary knowledge of what is Dharma Shastras. That's why when I suggest that, when I design that, okay, what should be the syllabus for being a scholar. So certainly there will be two types of scholars. One will be in Vedanta and Upanishads. Those type of scholars will be targeting Siddhanta. Siddhanta means the Jnana Vakyas, that existence of things, and specifically Brahma, that what is the reality of existence and how it exists. Those Vakyas will be dealt with there. And then another type of scholar would be the Dharma scholar, that what is to be done now. And this is a big requirement that we urgently have because we want to re-establish Varnashram Dharma. So we need details. details of how things are to be done. Even Krishna Bhakti, the Abhidaya, how they are to be done, have details. For example, Hari Bhakti Vilas is a detail of Abhidaya Marga, that how things are to be done. In what consciousness they are to be done? Yes, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu is there, and other Shat Sandarbhas are there. They are establishing this part. But how details, how are they are to be done? Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu also it says that for detail go to Hari Bhakti Vilas. So Hari Bhakti Vilas has those details. And it is quoting from so many Dharma Shastras as well as Pancharatras. So those details are to be had. First, we have to have them. Without that, we will not be able to establish properly the Dharma, we will not be able to establish Varnashram properly. Means not to be able to establish means there won't be practicality in that. It is bound to fail then because to make things practical we will speculate from our side because these are practical things. If you can't do if you don't know what is the instruction from shastras to do a particular thing, then you will fill in the gap by your speculation and things fail like that. And that's why a big need is there in this field regarding this field of vedanta and vidya, the upanishads. I can say that still this is much preserved by the Madhvas, specifically by the Madhvas. This particular part is still preserved much. Of course, we should also know that how the Gaudiya Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva is from the Upanishads and from the Shastras, how it is rooted into that, applying the rules of Mimamsa. And that particular field is there, and some scholars of that field also should be there. And but this one is completely neglected. And that's why what I suggest that if someone wants to be a scholar in this particular field, which we need urgently at this moment, then he should study Sanskrita. These basic Vedangas will be required. So specifically Nirukta Vyakarana to some extent is required so that he is able to get the meaning of what is being said, overall meaning. It may not be required that one becomes a Vayyakarani that studies the Mahabhashya and everything. May not be very much required. And studies Tarka Sangraha. Tarka Sangraha is mixture of, it's a introductory to Nyaya Shastra, Nyaya Vaishashika. Tarka Sangraha is introduction to that. Of course, it is Navya Nyaya. Still, it's not much difference. So, studying these two, one should be able to get into Dharma Shastras. So one should study Dharma Shastras along with commentaries. That could be the first step. And in that Dharma Shastras, the prime are Manu and Yagyavalkya, because Manu and Yagyavalkya together uh, gets into details of all the kandas, the achara, vyavahara, and prayashchita. Manu goes into details of achara and vyavahara, achara and prayashchita more, while Yagyavalkya goes into detail of much detail of vyavahara kanda. Vyavahara kanda is how to rule the society. And these two are the foremost, and they both have several commentaries. Manusmriti has 9 commentaries published already in Sanskrit, and Yagyavalkya Smriti has 3 published commentaries on Sanskrit in Sanskrit, and which is readily available. Plus the Parashara Smriti, which is the third Dharma Shastra for this Kali Yuga. So whatever is given in Parashara Smriti, if that clashes with Manu or Yagyavalkya, then Parashara Smriti's injunction has to be followed, favored in compared to that. That's why it is meant for Kali Yuga, seeing the Kali Yuga Samarthya they have given. But it is not an exhaustive Smriti, it's a very small book, but the commentary to that is available and it's an excellent commentary. We can learn how to nicely harmonize things, and many of the samshayas are getting harmonized there by the Madhavacharya, Parashara Madhavya. That should be studied. So these three, study of these three should take about a mediocre scholar, I'm not speaking of mediocre scholar here means 10% of the population will be mediocre scholar. Will come into that category. The first 10% will mediocre and highly scholarly. So that type of person should be able to finish these three commentaries if they study every day 5 hours. Then they should be able to finish these in about 3 years, not more than that. A high scholar, I would say, Radharaman to Sun could be in the category of a highly scholarship person. He may be able to finish this in 1.5 years. After he finishes understanding Nirukta Vyakaran and the Tarka Sangra. So, after reading these three, one can just go through the other 17 Dharma Shastras, which are available in just a single book, 18 Ashtadasha Smritayaha. One can just go through them, and those are also required. These are small Dharma Shastras, but they have many times they have much more details than, because they focus on a particular topic and not the all of the Dharma. That's why sometimes those details are more than they are in Manu Smriti. For example, the Lakshanas of a Brahmana or the Gunas of a Brahmana are given in more detail in Atri Smriti. So, like that. So, those 17 Dharma Shastra, it should not take more than 3 months to just go through the shlokas and translation. It's a 400, 500 page book, not much. So, Ashtadasha Smritaya. So, this will give a hold on the Dharma Shastras, what Dharma Shastras are saying. Beyond this, there are no other sources for the knowledge of Dharma. So, that's why majority of the Dharma you get from here. Then one should enter the Nibandha Granthas. Nibandha Granthas are many. First, one should enter the Nibandha Grantha called Hari Bhakti Vilasa, which speaks about Hari Bhakti. And Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu should also be studied. These two should be studied so that after studying Dharma Shastras, now we'll be able to understand detail, in more detail about what are the things which Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is speaking about, because Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is dependent on whatever is mentioned there is dependent on the Krishna's culture. So by this we get an idea of what Krishna's culture is. Then that grantha will be able to understand in more depth. And then Hari Bhakti Vilas will very nicely blend with the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu's explanations. You will be able to see that both are actually saying the same thing. One is in detail, and then one should start studying the foremost Nibandha Grantha of Madhva Sampradaya. There are two. One is the one which is in more detail and systematic is Smriti Muktavali. It's there in the library in 6 parts we have, and very excellent grantha for Samanvaya. So it does Samanvaya, and after reading Smriti Muktavali, completely reading it, uh, uh, then the next grantha one should read. Which one is there? See my library. Ashtadasha Smriti, Smriti Muktavali. Hi. The next Madhva Grantha only is Sadachara Smriti with three commentaries that is available. That is also available. That's about 700 pages book in Sanskrit. Once these two are read, you will get almost major idea of what dharma is all about, majority, and even a first hand over how the Mimamsha Shastra is used. Because here in the commentaries, you will be finding many Mimamsa rules which they are using. So, as a part of a practice, one can many times acharyas themselves explain those rules. But if they do not explain, then oh, sorry. Before that, yeah, entering Dharma Shastras after finishing Manu, Yagyavalkya, and Parashara, one should study the entrance course of Mimamsa Shastra. That is Artha Sangraha. Artha Sangraha. This is a very thin book, and that's there in the library also. And course on Artha Sangraha, Mimamsa entry has been done by Mani Dravid Shastrikal also in Sanskrit, the videos of which I have shared with Sarasati Prabhu and others, Jainityan Prabhu and others. Regarding the entry to Nyaya Shastra, those videos also, as I have said, from Karnataka Sanskrit University, a Madhva person took a course which I attended, and that's also good grasp of that. That video also has. So those videos can be seen. Besides that, on the entry of Nyaya Mimamsa Shastras and research methodologies, I have taken a small course of Mukunda and Gopal Chaitanya Prabhu. Recordings to that are also available with Gopal Chaitanya Prabhu as well as Sarveshwar Prabhu, and they're also there on my Google Drive. So that can be studied once. Of that, yeah, that can be studied, and then entering the Dharma Shastras and will be more helpful because you have got a little grasp of how the Mimamsa is used, what it's all about, what are the basic rules of that, by which you will be able to understand other rules many times. So then Dharma Shastras, and this way then the Nibandha Granthas should be had, and by this you will be able to get a good grasp over it. Then one should enter the study, then if required, and it may be required, yeah. By this, more than 90%, by the time by which you are completing these things, more than 90% of our type of samshayas will get solved, because our type of samshayas are basically more than 90% of them are not due to conflicting statements, but due to our not knowing shastras, because we do not know what shastras say about this particular thing. That's why we are getting, so 90% of them will be solved. But then yes, there will be some percentage of such samshas which will still remain. For that purpose, Mimamsa Shastra has to be studied in detail. It will take more than it will take about 3 years for a mediocre scholar to study the Mimamsa Shastra. That's the along with Shabara Bhashya. This Mimamsa, Jaimini Purva Mimamsa with Shabara Bhashya. For that, you will need a good teacher who has good grasp for Mimamsa rules. And if you try to enter the Shabara Bhashya and Mimamsa Sutras before studying all these things, then no matter how much good a teacher you will have, you will not be able to get the uh, real purport or the real feeling of understanding Mimamsa Shastra. It would be like parrot learning. Maybe knowing the rules, but it will not give you rooting into Shastras. That's why Mimamsa Shastra has to be resorted at last and not in the beginning. Along with all this, you can go on studying 18 Puranas, because Puranas are the Vedic sources of all these dharmas, and it's very detailed. So Puranas, you can go on studying even when you start studying Dharma Shastra. You can go on studying Puranas, or maybe I would suggest that after studying the Manu, Yagyavalkya, and Parashara, then with other things you can start Puranas also. Because if you have known the rules of Manu, Yagyavalkya, and Parashara, then certainly when you read Puranas, you will be able to get much more in detail. In Puranas, you will be able to know, okay, this is this, this is this, this is connected like this. It's not something saying different. So that will be very helpful. And along with reading Puranas, uh, One should also read the commentaries to Shrimad Bhagavatam. That will be a lifelong study. That will be a lifelong study. It could also become the part of one's sadhana, that along with reading Srila Prabhupada's books, Srila Prabhupada's Shrimad Bhagavatam purports, we can make it our habit that we read all the commentaries on that particular shloka along with Srila Prabhupada's purport. Along with Srila Prabhupada means I do not say that you read on in one day only one purport. Srila Prabhupada's book we have to go on reading every day 1 hour, and then this particular thing also we should try reading along with that. So that will be also very good. So this is what I foresee, that how a scholarship course should go ahead, so that it will be very much helpful in re-establishing Varnashrama as well as establishing scholars of the types which we do not found today because of lack of practical application of dharma. We don't have scholars from dharma shastras, and this is a big problem. Scholars from dharma shastras today do not know dharma. They know only some statements of dharma shastra, and that's it. And that they are also very few remaining. uh, I remember that in Varanasi, Bhakti Raghav Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Raghav Maharaj, he sent Venugopal Prabhu to Varanasi so that he can learn Arthashastra or the Raja Shastra, Vyavahara Kanda, from a guru in Varanasi, so that it will be helpful for the Varnashram communities and Gurukulas. He went there, he could not find a single person who can teach these Shastras in Parampara in Varanasi. They all were ready to teach other things, Mimamsa, Nyaya, Bhagavatam, Puranas, but they were not able to, he was not able to find. So then he studied some Bhagavatam commentaries to some extent, and the Shad Sandarbhas. Shad Sandarbhas, remember, Shad Sandarbhas do not speak about this 14 Vidyasthanas dharmas. It speaks about the perspective of that how it is placed in bhakti, but not about its details. So he studied that, and now his career in basically much more is in that regard. Of course, he himself studied the Arthashastra, Kautalya Arthashastra to some extent, but he could not get a guru for doing that. So that is why uh, we have to pray to the Lord and jump into this. And for us, we have those who have read Srila Prabhupada's books, all the things are already in perspective. And Jiva Goswami says in his Bhakti Sandarbha that for devotees who knows what all these things are all about, it becomes quite easy. It becomes easier to understand all the other shastras. Ahetukam, the word that word he has explained like this. So we have help of commentaries, dharma shastras, as well as we have nibandha granthas, and if one deeply goes into studying them, then one will be able to understand those things and enter these fields. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.